short story long, I used to be what they call an auditor for those three-letter agencies. An auditor as in the last guy in the organization wants to see at their door. I couldn't arrest anyone, so I used to make sure that there was no one left to it.
You gotta keep them separated.
Welcome to Now Playing Podcast's Nobody Retrospective Series.
Don't call 911.
Hosted by Jason.
Mansell's who?
Justin.
There's no way you were just some family man.
And Arnie.
Who the fuck are you?
Nobody.
But be warned, this episode will contain detailed plot spoilers and strong language.
I'm gonna fuck you up.
We hope you enjoy the show.
Go fix this shit.
Let's do this!
Today we're discussing Nobody 2, starring Bob Odenkirk, Connie Nielsen, John Ortiz, RZA, Colin Hanks, with Christopher Lloyd, and Sharon Stone, directed by Timo Tchaihanto. This is Arnie, co-host of Now Playing, and who the fuck are you two?
This is Justin.
And I'm Jason.
Thank you for coming back for this review as we talk about the sequel to this sleeper COVID hit, Nobody 2. You know, I'm sitting in the theater waiting for this movie to start, and I'm like, couldn't they come up with a better title than Nobody 2? I'm like, you could do Still Nobody, Nobody's Fool, Nobody Knows, Two No, Two Body. I mean, there's a lot of options here.
Nobody else can do. They kind of missed the opportunity. Same way they missed the opportunity with Now You See Me, Now You Don't.
They don't need to be overly clever. They can just throw the two on there. They know that that's the audience. The audience will understand. Their audience doesn't want it to be too fancy.
And I saw this film pretty much everywhere. If I was on YouTube, I was seeing ads. If I was on TikTok, I was seeing ads. Facebook, Reddit. This movie was all over the place. I even went on a trip and saw some billboards for it.
Well, billboards, that's to the target audience, to the older audience that still gets billboard advertisements, yeah.
That just means you were in LA, though. Every movie gets a billboard in LA at some point. I hear you. I've been seeing ads for this everywhere as well. So either they're hitting a target audience with some targeted ads, or they're just blanketing it out there and hoping people are seeing this.
Were you guys excited for this one when you finally went in? I was pretty excited. I mean, I liked that first one quite a bit, as we talked about last week. So seeing more Bob Odenkirk kicking ass, I was pretty jazzed.
I was cautiously optimistic. I want to be excited, but also I've given my thoughts on the diminishing returns in a similar franchise, the John Wick franchise we've been in. I'm really hoping going into this movie that that's not the train we're getting on. I'm hoping we're not getting on a train that's like, hey, let's stretch us out as far as we can. Hopefully, with a part 2 here, they still have more story to tell without having to extend the initial reason for the movie.
And we talked about last time how this was kind of a pandemic hit. Toward the end of the pandemic in early 2021, it was a very unique period, I would say, to put out a movie and make a lot of money. And it almost felt like the kind of thing where you wouldn't expect lightning to strike twice. And we've had kind of a rough summer for sequels. Karate Kid Legends, Megan 2, even the I Know What You Did Last Summer Legacy sequel. And we did the review for Ballerina, which I know is a spinoff, but none of those were real big hits. And so there's skepticism when it comes to any sequel, and especially for a movie like this. My first impression from the previews, the whole idea of Hutch and the family going on vacation, it felt very episodic to me. Like Tonight on Nobody. You know, like Ernie Anderson cutting a promo. Trouble finds Hutch. He takes the family to the water park. And Sharon Stone guest stars. It's an all-new Nobody. We're dropping our hero in a new setting with a new problem that's most likely a self-contained kind of conflict. So there's skepticism, but I know that I liked the first film, and I know that I liked the characters, and I would go back for Bob Odenkirk to see him do his thing again.
Yeah, I did some reading up on the production of this, and they decided pretty early on they were going to do a sequel, and they had a lot of ideas of putting Hutch in exotic locales, and Odenkirk was reading one script where it was talking about him going to Italy and things, and finally he's like, wait a second, no, Jason Bourne goes to Italy, James Bond goes to Italy, Hutch does not go to Italy, Hutch goes to the Wisconsin Dells. Apparently, Bob Odenkirk, much like Hutch, only had one really memorable family vacation as a kid, and it was to the Wisconsin Dells, and so he's like, we're going to bring that into Hutch's life here.
When you say that, and when you say Hutch doesn't go to Italy, Bob Odenkirk doesn't go to Italy, that I kind of felt about my audience. I was in a theater with Hutches, like Hutch cosplay. It was very strange. I know they weren't cosplaying on purpose, but I went opening day Friday, or I guess it premiered on Thursday, but I went Friday afternoon, mid-afternoon at 3 o'clock, and it was actually a very crowded theater. And it was very crowded theater of all middle-aged or senior men. It was a boomer crowd. And my row practically filled up. My daughter and I sat next to people on both sides of us, which is very rare. And the guy next to me was, he was Odenkirk. He had a golf shirt tucked into his khakis. He was sitting back there, and it was a lot of couples, a lot of older couples. So I really felt like, boy, this character has connected with a certain demographic, and that's who's here to see it.
Yeah, you would expect to see quite a few quarter zip fleece vests in a showing of this movie, but I ended up going to a Thursday early evening, and it was me and one other guy. So I don't know if I was just there earlier and people are still working or what, but yeah, my theater experience was pretty much just me and some other dude.
Yeah, I went to an early Thursday showing as well. I'm having kind of a crazy weekend schedule. There was literally no other time I could go other than cutting out of work early on Thursday to go see the 4:30 showing. I went to Alamo. They had this on the big show screen, which is, like the DLX or something. Not quite IMAX, but the best sound, the biggest screen Alamo has. And I looked around and there were 5 of us. The age ranged from like 20 to 50s. And one was a woman. So, we're branching out. 20% of my audience was female, given that there was one. She wasn't there with a boyfriend or anything. And so there were just a whole bunch of us scattered around. It didn't even look like anybody has friends in this audience. Like, we all were a bunch of lonely people who wanted to see a movie on a Thursday afternoon.
Nobody to. It really has some meaning behind that name. I got nobody to go with me to the movie.
Well, it's not going to do extraordinarily well. This movie cost $25 million. Pretty low for any movie, but a little bit on the high side for something that is a sequel to this. And they were hoping that it would make between 12 and 20 opening. And now it's looking like it's going to open at around 9. So that is not good. It turns out that Weapons has some serious legs. It's going to be number 1. Freakier Friday in its second week is going to do better than Nobody 2. Nobody 2 is running up for 3rd. So my empty audience wasn't just an indication of the time I went. It's an indication of the interest of this movie.
Well, they do say that older audiences can give a movie legs because they don't always go opening weekend. But we'll see if this has legs. The only thing I would say that it has going for it at the box office the next few weeks is there's no competition that's not already out there. There's nothing hitting until Conjuring first week of September.
Are you saying Toxic Avenger remake is not going to compete?
I am saying Toxic Avenger remake will not compete, absolutely.
So, coming into this one, Bob Odenkirk, I don't know how much you guys follow his private life. I don't follow it a ton. But it was pretty big news that he had a serious heart attack while filming Better Call Saul. They thought he might die. He had to go to the ER. And he really credits his training for the first Nobody for giving him the strength and the cardiovascular health he needed to pull through that heart attack and not have long-lasting effects. So he never stopped his training after Nobody. He just kept working with the trainer, kept doing more fight choreography and stunts and strength training and just getting into better and better shape. And he's still training after Nobody too also. He's become a gym bro.
Hey, you know what? Whatever keeps the man alive longer, because I don't want to lose Bob Odenkirk.
But they brought in a new director for this one, not quite as unknown as we had last time, but have either of you seen any of Timo Tchano's films? This is his first English language film. He's a big Indonesian filmmaker.
I was going to say not that I'm aware of, but now that you say that, I'm guessing probably not. Sounds like you'd have to seek it out purposely.
Yeah, and I have not either. I mean, I looked at what the name of the film, Headshot, Killers, Macabre. I haven't seen these.
Those were some he did with another director. They used the name the Mo Brothers, kind of like the Wachowskis. Then he went off on his own. If you saw the VHS anthologies, he did do some shorts in the VHS films. I hadn't seen any of his work, and I just went and asked our listeners if I see one of his films to kind of prep me and give me his style for Nobody 2, what should I watch? And unanimously, it seemed to be a 2018 Indonesian film called The Night Comes For Us. And so I gave that one a watch, and it was good. I can't say the story was tremendously original. It's about a triad elite gang member who decides he's killed enough and wants to save the life of a little girl he was ordered to kill, and so he turns against the triad. And of course, madness ensues. There's a lot of action, a lot of really inventive choreography, like he's attacking people with pool balls. He's ripping like the net off a pool table and using that as a bludgeoning device. And you've got knives, machetes, garrotes, all kinds of weaponry going on, as well as some pretty well done character moments. Like I said, it's not the most original setup in the world, but I really found myself into this main character's arc, and the drama of it worked almost as well as the action. So seeing that, I'm like, okay, this guy can definitely do the action. We knew that with the last guy, but this guy can also do some character beats, work with actors.
And I'd say that all of that stuff is present here in Nobody 2. You use the word inventive. I actually have that word in my notes, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the action. This movie is going to have its little character beats, but you know what? It's also going to be super short. They're going to get it in 89 minutes, just like the last one was super short.
You're not going to hear complaints from me about a movie not stretching it out unnecessarily.
And I don't think you'd hear complaints from the geriatric audience in my theater either.
Yeah, you got to use the bathroom, right?
You know, there's always people that are walking in front of you. There was a lot of that.
Well, before any of us need to get up and use the bathroom, Arnie, why don't you give him the plot to Nobody 2?
Since we last saw him, Bob Odenkirk's Hutch has become a mercenary. Needing to pay back the Russian mafia for all the cash he burned up in the first film, Hutch is working day and night for the barber, again played by Colin Salmon, to extinguish the debt. This has left Hutch's family feeling abandoned as Hutch repeatedly stays out late and misses dinner. He's unaware of his son Brady getting into fights at school, and his wife Becca, played by Connie Nielsen, is struggling to stay in the relationship. Knowing something must be done, Hutch plans a family vacation to Plummerville. No, that's not a Mario land filled with pipes and turtles. It's instead a tourist town with the country's first water park. Going with the family is Hutch's dad David, again played by Christopher Lloyd. But in this little town, Hutch goes medieval when an arcade employee smacks the back of his daughter Sammy's head. This puts Hutch and Brady in jail, where they meet corrupt Sheriff Abel, played by Colin Hanks, and the man who really runs the town, Wyatt Martin, played by John Ortiz. Wyatt tells Hutch to get out of town and leaves it at that, but Abel doesn't think that's enough, so he sends a deputy and some local thugs to kill Hutch. This leads to a fight on a duck boat that leaves Hutch without the tip of his pinky finger, and leaves the attackers without many teeth left. Meanwhile, we learn that Wyatt and Abel are involved in illegal smuggling. Plummerville is a port for illegally imported drugs, weapons, and more from Canada. Wyatt is working for elite criminal Lendina, played by Sharon Stone. He's been working to pay off his father's debt, but Lendina says Wyatt will continue to work for her forever. When Wyatt rebels, Lendina has Abel kidnap Wyatt's son Max. Hutch goes to make peace with Abel, but when he sees the teenage Max taped up in a van, Hutch again cuts loose, rescuing Max and blowing up all of Lendina's smuggled goods in the process. Lendina personally comes to Plummerville to murder Abel and to also make sure Wyatt and Hutch are eliminated, but the two have teamed up, And along with help from Hutch's dad David and Hutch's brother Harry, played again by RZA, they booby-trap the entire water park to defend themselves from the attack. Harry watches over Wyatt and Hutch's children, using a katana to kill Lendina's men who come calling. Meanwhile, Hutch, Wyatt, and David take on all of Lendina's goons. Lendina finally goes to kill Hutch herself when Becca shows up with a rifle. She shoots a tranquilizer dart in Lendina's eye. Then David sets off all the explosives, killing Lendina and the rest of her men, while Hutch and Becca are safe underwater. Hutch and Becca are taken by government agents for questioning, but an anonymous phone call gets both set free. Wyatt and Max are now safe and free from Lendina, and Hutch and his family return home with good memories and better photos, and 2 new canine pets, as credits roll.
And as we start, we're starting just like the first movies. They're going to hit a lot of familiar beats in this film, and the first one is Hutch being interrogated after he's obviously been through some sort of fight. And this time he's got a wolf dog with him.
That's kind of fun, because you do get the agent saying, "Who the fuck are you two?" And we're going to find out at the end Hutch's wife is with him, but at the moment you think he means Hutch and the dog.
What did the dog do?
Yeah, they do start off on the exact same beats, and in that first movie, I felt like it was a great way to grab you and get you intrigued in this world, right? We talked about the odd things he is pulling out of his coat and lighting a cigarette, the tuna and all that. This one, I feel like they're doing the same thing, but it doesn't have that same sense of intrigue somehow. I mean, he takes out his lighter, and I think he lights it. It's like a Zippo, and then he sutures a wound on his wrist, I believe. I wasn't really sure what he was doing there, but yeah, I mean, I liked it. They're starting it off the same way, but right up top, it feels like they didn't have a great idea like they did the first time out.
It feels like a callback, and I was of two minds immediately. On the one hand, I'm like, oh, this is fun, we're doing this again. And on the other hand, I'm like, oh, we're doing this again. You know what I'm saying? And when he burns himself with the lighter, I wasn't sure what he was doing either. Is this like a, you guys don't fuck with me, I'm so tough, I'm gonna burn myself with a lighter? Or does he have some wound on his hand that he was cauterizing? I couldn't tell.
I thought it was the latter, what he was doing. Am I thinking that this was episodic going in? To me, we could look at these interrogation scenes as the cold opens to every episode of Nobody. What did Hutch get himself into this time? Tonight, he's got a dog with him. Oh boy. We get the interrogation scene. Who are you? And then we get the title card. If you think about it in that way, we're going to get our third act A-team rigging of the locale. You know, we'll get there. But this is kind of the way that I'm thinking about the film right now. I'm thinking about it like it's the Friday night slot that comes on before Dallas.
Yeah, and I think that works as a setup for sure. I'm just saying that this time out, I don't feel like they had a great, unique, creative idea the same way they did the first time. But yeah, with that in mind, it's part 2, and oftentimes part 2s, you know, they hit the same beats, and some things they do bigger and better than the first time around, and some things they just seem like they're aping from themselves.
But they're ape from themselves too when they go back and start the flashback period with the same Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday montage we saw before, only now instead of Hutch just being downtrodden and going through the motions, Hutch is in fight after fight after fight while texting his wife from a blood-covered iPhone, and she's wondering, is he ever coming home for dinner? It's kind of the reverse of the last one, whereas the last one, he was emotionally checked out and not connected with his family. Now he's physically not there.
Right, which is another relationship hurdle, which I appreciate the fact that they're going to bring us back to this and show us the challenges happening in Hutch's marriage. You talk about the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday little montage. I really felt that was coming from Becca's perspective this time and not so much from Hutch's. I think it could be shared, but I was really thinking about her and we were watching a lot of her going through her daily routine of trying to manage a household while Hutch is off to work, taking care of business. A lot of similar business. I mean, he's in the elevator fight, busting guys up, that kind of thing.
Hey, but he finally catches the garbage in time. So that's a win for Hutch.
How hard is it to put the garbage out the night before?
And the action is good. I was a little bit worried because there's a fight early on where I think he's fighting some Yakuza, and they start doing a little John Wick gun fu. The thing I liked about the last one is, as wickish as it was, the fights all felt like brawls. They never felt like the choreographed dance with the John Wick stuff, but there was a little bit of gun fu here. Then he loses his gun, an axe comes out of nowhere. I mean, I've only seen the movie once, but I can't tell where this axe came from that Hutch suddenly has to shove in this guy's chest. But if you're looking for action, they're showing you from the very beginning you're going to get it.
For sure. And Arnie, I'm keeping an eye out for stuff like that too. Like, I don't want this to fall into John Wick territory too quickly. And I also don't want it to fall into our main hero is turning slowly into a superhero. And they get a little close here with one of the fight scenes where he ends up getting out of the situation by blowing up a tank of some sort. It might have been a fire extinguisher, but it seemed like, oh boy, he's done. Oh, some superhuman stuff's going to happen here. But they walk the line just enough where it's like, okay, it's plausible. This really could happen. I can go with it.
Yeah, I get, like the axe, I don't know where this tank came from or what was in it. Propane, nitrous oxide, whatever. But it was kind of fun. Meanwhile, he's getting texts from his wife. The most dangerous thing he's facing is his wife types a text, "We need to talk." You never want that. I would rather fight 3 Yakuza with machetes than get the text, "We need to talk." But she deletes it and then just says, "Okay, love you." And he's doing, haven't we all been there where you're just watching the 3 dots as somebody's typing something?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And you know what? This gets into the relationship stuff because, I'm thinking about Becca's situation here, and she stops typing the "we need to talk," and instead taking that kind of everything is fine route. That is a relationship destroyer in the long term. So I'm wondering what's going to happen to this couple in this movie. And I do appreciate that it's giving us these small kind of grounded moments where the two of them aren't communicating and there's avoidance on both of their parts to kind of get to the root of their relationship troubles. It's a tough balance to do this with all the action scenes. I think they're able to pull it off.
Yeah, their relationship here is strained. We're seeing that they're not necessarily talking about it, but Hutch's wife is getting ready to blow, it seems like. She's trying to start the conversation. She gets ready to leave in the morning. She drives off, comes reversing back, and does it again, basically like, yes, okay, have a good day. And to Hutch's credit, he knows that she wants to talk, but he's happy to avoid the conversation for the time being.
Thank goodness that they make him aware. You know what I mean? A movie could play dumb, and Hutch could be like, oh, I don't know what's going on. I didn't realize anything was wrong. I feel like the screenwriters, they're a little bit smarter than that. And also, they know that they're working in a very tight film. Like, you want to keep this film short. We can't have our characters be stupid. You know what I mean? They need to say what's on their mind, so we need to get going with it.
I'm torn on how I feel about this, because on the one hand, I kind of like that the audience is left to their own interpretation as to what Becca is going through. She says, "We need to talk." She drives away mid-sentence while Hutch is talking to her. It sounds like, Justin, you and I have the same reading, that like she's thinking of ending things, she's thinking of getting out of this relationship, but we don't know. So on one hand, I like letting the audience interpret. On the other hand, am I just too jaded on this? Because I think her character arc, just to get to it, is that she starts off ready to end things, and then when we get to the climax, she's telling him, "I'm in this forever. You're my husband. You're the father of my children. We're just going to make this work, whatever it takes." I think that's the only character arc in this movie, but if that's going to be our point of view character, this Becca needs a lot more to do. We need more focus on Becca. We need to understand Becca more, and I need to understand what changes beyond finding that Hutch brought a special bottle of wine on a vacation to really take her from driving away mid-sentence to standing by him and picking up a gun at the end.
Yeah, and this movie's going to have some work to do as well in avoiding the trope of the scorned wife who, for whatever reason, yes, she has feelings and they're probably valid, but from our perspective, we know what Hutch is out there doing and why he's doing it. And there's always that frustration of like, oh, if you could only know why he's doing something, you wouldn't have this issue. So if they're going to inject this into this movie, you're right, Arnie, they need to put us on her side and let us see her perspective for us to get on board with that.
And we may be thinking about it a little bit too far. I didn't really ever get the impression that she was ready to leave Hutch. I just got the impression that they need to talk. And that is a thing. Couples need to sit down. They have to have these conversations, just be honest about things all the time. So I just felt that was it. I never thought that their marriage was so on the rocks that it was about to end. I didn't think it was certainly as bad as it was in the first one. The first one, they weren't barely even talking. This one, I just felt like, yeah, this is another thing that couples go through. Somebody spending way too much time at work, not enough time with the family, and they need to fix that.
Yeah, the last one had that really good scene when Hutch came home from the bus fight and was like, it's been a long time since we've had sex, longer since we've made love. It really was a emotional moment that made me care about this married couple, and this movie's going to lack that. We're getting a lot of inference, we're getting a lot of shorthand, and I get it. I mean, I like that they've picked up a little bit on the last film. You don't get to just burn Russian mafia money and get away with it. He's working not because he likes the work, although we know he does. You know, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And that's Hutch. But it's that he has to pay back all this money. And I guess we're going to get in a sentence, and that's all we need, is that the barber paid the Russians all the money back. And so now he owes the barber. And Hutch is working so much. It is the start of summer vacation, and he'll be out of debt by spring. So just one more year.
Yeah, and he's got to pay off $30 million of the object by spring. You're doing some pretty big jobs.
What do you guys think of this? Like, I know it's just kind of an explanation. It's a reason for him to be working again. But also in the logic of the universe, I don't know that I like the idea that the barber and his institution, whatever it is big enough that they can just pay off this huge amount of money that the Russians had. Like, to me, what he did in that first movie should have been destroying so much money that it was just unthinkable. If this is supposed to be the nest egg of however many hundreds of thousands of Russians, and it's being protected by all these elite people or whatever, that needed to be an unattainable goal, right? And the fact that this barber can just like kind of write it off to the side and it's like, okay, you can work it off for me. We'll make an installment plan for you. Seems a little bit sweeping it under the ruggish to me.
I kind of agree with the sweeping under the rug part of it, for sure. You know, Colin Salmon maybe brokered some kind of peace with the Russians and they'll allow Hutch to pay it back. And I was kind of writing the movie in my head while I was watching this because Lord knows at 89 minutes, you may want to fill in some spots in your own brain. I think in the process, Hutch is probably taking care of some of those Russians' enemies for them too. So he's doing jobs that are going to help them out because he's probably the only one who can do it. And I'm okay. I just kind of go with it. To me, it's better than a sequel. I wouldn't like it, guys, if we got a sequel where he's just got to fight off the whole Russian mob who are after him. I would have just been like, that doesn't appeal to me as much as this premise, as simple as this premise is on tonight's episode.
It sounds exactly like John Wick, though, right? I mean, in John Wick 1, he killed some Russian mobsters. In John Wick 2, the bosses of those mobsters and people he owed debts to come back and he has to fight those people. I'm glad that we're saying there are repercussions from the first film without making it the plot of the second film.
That's what I'm saying is like, I don't want to dwell too deeply on it, but it kind of hit me a little weird because this is kind of the first bit of world building we're getting in this new universe now, right? So you kind of want to follow those strings up a little bit. But what I will say is, to their credit, the filmmakers seem to be coming up to decision points in this script and saying, what would John Wick do? Let's not do that, right? So it's, if in John Wick, he would make this second movie about going after that same Russian crew and dealing with that. They're saying, nah, let's do something different. Instead of him going off to some foreign country like we spoke about up top, no, let's keep him in the States and let's put him in a podunk town.
And thank goodness for that. Seriously, just for all those obvious ways that this screenplay could go, leave that to the geezer teaser movies. Leave that to, the ones that Stallone's doing right now. He can do those obvious ones. These have to be a little bit more clever, especially if you're going to put this out in theaters.
But I am really liking the action we get here. When he says to Becca he's going to plan a vacation, he only has one assignment that day, and it seems like it's going to be easy. He's in this hotel, and I like just the moment that he shoves the out of service sign in front of the elevator as he gets on it. We get one of the best elevator fight scenes I've seen since The Winter Soldier, as he's going up against these 3 bodyguards, taking one of their guns apart and shooting them, and the guy who has whatever card he wants to take is trying to call for help and just cowering in the corner. The way it's filmed, I think bringing in this director was great. When he's fighting the Brazilians and the Brazilians have the machete, the way he throws the machete and it goes from screen left to screen right, the camera isn't moving at all, and the Brazilian gets like impaled against a van. I'm just like, that is a really static shot that allows the action to speak for itself instead of trying to make things even more exciting with fast cutting and camera movements.
This is another callback. When he mentions the Corsicans and he says, was it Uzis or was it MP7s? It was MP7s. And they have to switch it. It's very much like the first movie. They do that over again.
Yeah. And I know the point you're making is that you're enjoying especially the fight scene in the elevator, but how many elevator fight scenes have you seen since Winter Soldier? Is it a top 10 type of situation or?
Here's the thing, is it stood out to me. I'm sure I've seen elevator fight scenes since, and none of them are memorable enough for me to think of it. Here, I'm like, all right, this isn't as good as Captain America against Crossbones, but it's good. I like the close quarters battle.
Fair enough. But yeah, I also like the storytelling thing that we're doing here is we're kind of seeing this in flashback. This is Hutch recalling his day to the barber, right? Like, so we're getting this in pieces. We already know the mission is complete. He has the data card that he was out for, but boy, oh boy, was it more work than he was on board for initially.
We're in a flashback within a flashback where we get another flashback after that, and he sees on this bloody bumper sticker, Plummerville. He knew he had to come up with a plan. I thought he was literally just picking the first thing he saw. Like, okay, now I have a plan. I might be guilty of this myself sometimes. Is just grabbing the very first thing that comes to mind and saying it's a well-researched plan with my wife because I ran out of time. So I thought he was going to someplace he didn't know and it was going to turn out to be shit. But no, it's a reminder to him of the one time his father took him and his brother on a vacation as a kid. He has happy memories there. And so he wants to take his whole family there. And I love that, like, they pull up on YouTube an old ad from the 80s that looks like it's on VHS. It has the rolling and the static of old VHS tapes. And I'm with Brady. I'm like, I volunteer to stay home. This looks awful. I went to the Wisconsin Dells once. I drove through and went, this looks shitty as hell if you don't have kids who like water slides. And I left.
Okay, can somebody tell me about the Wisconsin Dells? I was trying to, in my head, I was like, where is this taking place? Where's this water park? Because I thought Florida. I thought, that's where people go for a lot of theme parks and things like that. Tell me about this Wisconsin Dells.
Have you been, Justin?
I have not been. I've had family that have been there, and I've seen pictures, and this seems to be pretty well representative, right? Like just smaller towns with smaller size attractions. And if I was planning a trip to an amusement park, I don't think the Wisconsin Dells or that region would even be in my top 20 of suspects.
Yeah, it's just this area in kind of southern Wisconsin, a couple hours north of Chicago. And the thing that comes to mind also as an equally shitty place, and I am probably offending a ton of listeners with this, is Branson, Missouri. When you're just stuck in the Midwest and you need someplace to take the family and you can't go to Disneyland, you go to one of these shitty second-rate places like Branson, Missouri, where Yakov Smirnoff is still doing stand-up, or you go to the Wisconsin Dells, where there's just a ton of water parks and a zoo and dinosaur statues. I remember parking on the side of the road and taking some quick photos of dinosaur statues as we went through the Dells. And it's like, there's a theater for crappy shows and a Ripley's Believe It or Not museum and mini golf. I mean, it's just a place to go.
Yeah. Years ago, we ended up in Gatlinburg, which is where Dollywood is. And we didn't get a chance to go to Dollywood, but seeing it, Dollywood is like a legit amusement park. I mean, it's kind of quietly a big Six Flags type amusement park. But since we didn't have time to do that, we kind of went into their touristy area. And I swear to you, every other business, and I'm talking for like 2-mile stretch on this main road, was a combo mini golf and kart place. And you had your pick of probably 15 to 20 of them to go to. And that kind of gives me the vibe of what the Wisconsin Dells is, right? Like, you want to play putt-putt? We've got that. You want to see a display of cheeses? We've got that. It's not something I feel like is a destination. It's something to do if you're in that area.
Yeah, but people I know would make annual trips to the Wisconsin Dells, but it's because their kids loved water slides, and there are a lot of water slides in the Wisconsin Dells. And, you know, it's just cheaper than getting on an airplane with 5 people and flying to Orlando. I lived in Illinois. You can hop in a car, drive 5 torturous hours with 3 screaming kids, and then you're at the water park.
So it's just, a regional touristy resort town kind of place. I grew up on the East Coast. I understand this. Got Hershey, Pennsylvania, Darien Lake in New York where I grew up. I get it.
Yeah, so they're looking at this ad where there's a summer vibe tiki bash. Plummerville is Somerville. And, the only emotional moment I feel we get this whole damn movie is Hutch here reminiscing about his childhood. And I just wrote down this quote. When things get tough, you need happy memories to carry you through. And Plummerville gave him happy memories, and he wants to do that for his family. And I'm like, that is an actual genuine moment that I think a lot of people can relate to, is you need to have something, no matter how shitty your life is, you need to have one thing you can hold on to, and for Hutch, this is it.
Yeah, it's also the plot of Vacation, too, right? I mean, this is Clark's entire motivation, is he wants to give his family a great memory from when he was a child, too. So, yeah, doing this here with Hutch, I feel like there's some shorthand. We can even pretend like they had all kinds of wacky adventures, seeing the world's largest ball of mud along the way, and we get them to this small town.
The trailers for this movie were to Lindsey Buckingham's Holiday Road.
Oh, yes.
And that got me excited, but you got me more excited when Hutch hops in the minivan there with the fam, and they crank up the spiral staircase and play I Love You More Today Than Yesterday.
And they get there and are at a shitty hotel. The kids don't want to share a room. Becca thinks they're too old. I don't know what Becca's talking about. I don't know if it was appropriate, but when I was 13 and my sister was 25, we went on a family vacation and not to share not only a room, but a bed. And I did not like that, but I had to do it because my parents weren't buying a second room.
Yeah, I've been in hotel rooms with my mom and dad and my 3 younger brothers all in a 2-bedroom hotel room before. There's nothing wrong with a family all staying together, and especially in a crappy little hotel like this.
But on the road, I do have one question. They take Christopher Lloyd with them. He's in this movie so little. I'm really disappointed. He's in this movie perhaps as much as he was in the last one, but he does so much less. He never gets a cool moment like when he had the shotgun in the first film and killed those 2 guys. But there's one scene as they're driving to Plummerville where he comes running out of a convenience store holding 2 bags of stuff, shouting, "Start the car!" Did he rob a convenience store on the way?
Getting a little bit of Little Miss Sunshine vibes off of this relationship, right? He's the crazy old man in the back of a vehicle on a family road trip.
Yeah, I wish I was watching Little Miss Sunshine. I do. That's a really, really good movie. And yeah, he's showing Sammy how to use a camera because Sammy is going to be completely forgotten in this movie. I mean, if you're thinking about Vacation, and Aubrey had the least to do in the first Vacation movie, here, Sammy is not going to have a lot. I mean, we're going to have something for everybody else in the family. We've already found out Brady, the son, has been getting in fights at school and has a black eye. That's going to be a mystery. And Sammy, she's here.
We're getting close to meeting another character that they're about to introduce, which is the son of the mayor or whoever runs this town. His son is going to get into a fight with Brady at an arcade that they go to. But he has more to do in this movie than Sammy does. I almost wonder if the kidnapping plot in this movie was originally something for Sammy to do, but they backed away from that because that made it too personal for Hutch, where he couldn't make a decision about it. If they had his daughter, he had to go in.
Maybe, but I'm just gonna say right off the bat, I feel this movie is sloppily written. And I know that in the first film, Odenkirk had script after script, writer after writer, until he got something he felt was really good, and he got Kolstad to write it. Here, Kolstad did some of the writing, Aaron Robin did some of the writing, and I just feel like it's not as tight. The character arcs aren't really there, the development isn't really there, characters are introduced with nothing to do. Seriously, you could have totally poltergeisted Sammy here. Remember when the older sister disappears in Poltergeist for like half the movie to go stay with her friend? Sammy could have stayed behind with her friend or summer school or something just to get her out of the way. I don't know why everything happens the way it does, other than it was like this in the first film. People like the first film. Let's do that again.
Well, you may have those issues with the screenplay. You could also take them up with the editor in the end. I mean, we know that when you go to shoot this movie, they didn't shoot it and say, we're shooting 89 minutes. You know, they didn't film 89 minutes worth of material. There is probably a lot of stuff that just didn't make it into this movie, and I'll bet a lot of that stuff is dialogue between the characters.
Maybe, but the last movie was short too, and I feel like there is an audience for shorter films, and not necessarily even an older audience. There are times when I'm looking to watch a movie, and sometimes I wish my Plex would sort by runtime. So I'm like, which movie had come out in the last year that's less than 100 minutes, because I'd kind of like to go to bed before midnight, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this may have better legs on digital than it does in theaters. I hope it does for its sake. So I think that keeping it tight is a good way to go.
For sure. And this movie does keep it tight, but Arnie, I do feel some of the holes that you're feeling with the script here. And, you know, some of that is just the part two-ness of it, because in that first one, they could have wrote in or wrote out any character that ended up feeling superfluous to the story, and it wouldn't have mattered because we wouldn't have been any wiser. Here, we already have an established family, so now they have to try to find something for everybody to do.
And that doesn't always work. Every episode, we're not always going to get a deep arc for somebody. We've got our first act, then we've got our first break commercial. Hutch is on the road now. Before the half-hour mark of this episode, we got to get him and the family to the park. We got to see that the park is not exactly the way that Hutch remembers it. But when he goes into that little restaurant, he remembers what it was like with him and Rizzo when they were kids, eating hot dogs and, you know, other carnival kind of foods.
It is kind of funny to me that they get to the water park, it's closed. This is also another opportunity, because we know the water park is owned by a guy who's smuggling stuff. You could have a reason why the water park is closed. Somebody's dead there. It's closed because they're moving guns through it. Something could be explained, but maybe it is just a vacation callback. Maybe this is like Wally World being closed, but here you get a coupon for some hot dogs, and they go to the hot dogs. We're briefly introduced to this asshole Sheriff Abel, Colin Hanks, if you watch Fargo on TV, which I don't.
I know Colin Hanks from the other stuff that he's done, and we know that he's the villain in this film. The way he shows up and just eyeballing Hutch is just another instance, felt like the first movie, of a wannabe tough guy and, you know, performative masculinity. And look at Hanks, the way he's done himself up in this movie. Just, yeah, the body language, the haircut. He looks like one of these guys whose kids stopped talking to him after the election. You know what I mean?
Yep, he's got a couple red hats in his pickup truck at home for sure. But the introduction here was pretty good because Hutch is just kind of staring off into space, having a flashback memory of him and his brother as kids. But what he's really doing is staring directly at the sheriff. So from his perspective, I can kind of see like, hey, pal, what's your problem? Why are you just staring at me?
I get that. I thought it was going to escalate a lot more than it does right there, but it's just introducing us to this character being a jerk because Hutch's hot dogs are ready, and if the water park gave him coupons for the hot dogs gave him coupons for the arcade, and at the arcade we're gonna see Brady is really, really good at the basketball game. He's got tons of tickets, and I think some girls are kind of flirting with them. They're like staring and giggling, and he gives them some tickets. They seem happy with that.
Yeah, but we're going to find out that Colin Hanks isn't the only one in this town who's all pent up and wants to be an asshole. This is kids stuff, though. This performative masculinity among teenagers is not uncommon. So it's just the local bully kid who wants to pick a fight with Brady, thinks he's some kind of tough guy, and he's going to find out, as everybody's going to find out in this film, that this is not the family to be fucked with.
We never really find out why Brady got that black eye at school. Initially, it's thought it's because he was in a game and it happened as a foul in the game. And then he's like, no, people came after me in a game. And what Becca's going to say is he's taking after his father. He sees Hutch bruised and beaten, and so he's following in that. And so Brady is not going to back down from this bully Max when Max starts giving him some crap.
Well, did I pick up the dialogue earlier when Brady was talking about his black eye? Didn't he say that he won that fight?
Yes, he did. He told his dad he won the fight.
So Brady can throw down.
Arnie, the way you explained it is exactly the same way the movie described it. And to me, it just reeks of like, this script needed another pass because they just kept referring it to as the game, the game. Like a more natural way to talk about this would be like, oh, in our baseball game or whatever. We don't even know what sport he was supposedly playing. And I know it's not a huge detail, but it just, the way the movie did it, they kept saying the game like it was supposed to be replaced later once they figured out what sport Brady might be good at.
I tell you some of these things, and I don't want to do the screenplay any favors, but you leave it vague enough so that the audience sitting around me can insert themselves into any scenario. So the guy in the cargo shorts behind me can be like, oh yeah, my son in his basketball games comes home with black eye all the time. Maybe the guy next to him, his son plays baseball.
No, that's a fair point. It just, the way they kept saying it just felt like, we'll come back to that later and write that in, but they just never did.
And, Hutch stops the fight, but the moment that arcade employee slaps Sammy in the back of the head, you just know, right? You don't do that.
I can't believe that he even left the building to think about it before going back in. I mean, that is the last straw. And Hutch is completely within his rights to go in there and just beat ass. And I love this scene. The claw from the claw machine, the whack-a-mole situation. And these guys are the same guys from the first movie. They all think they're badder than they are. They have no idea what a real badass can do. And Hutch just obliterates this whole group.
It was funny to me that there was apparently a group of like 5 or 6 thugs just hanging out at this arcade, ready to rumble.
And I love that this is all happening to Offspring come out and play. I mentioned in the last movie there was too much ironic music. And if the same director as the last one came in, we'd probably be hearing some Sammy Davis Jr. during this fight. And no, give me a song that's old enough to be affordable on a $25 million budget movie, but exciting enough that I can enjoy it during this fight.
When he goes back into the arcade and they crank up the Offspring, I'm like, finally, something for my generation.
So Hutch kicks some ass and avenges his daughter's honor, I guess, from getting smacked in the head. But this lands him in front of the local sheriff, who we think is the big bad guy, but as we often learn in part 2s, there's always somebody bigger. So now he's sitting in front of John Ortiz's character, Wyatt.
I was so happy to see John Ortiz in the credits before the two. This guy is like one of my favorite character actors of the last 20 years.
Big Sergeant Bilko fan, are you?
No, I go back to Miami Vice, actually. Miami Vice, where he plays the bad guy there, and he's like, oh, the negotiate money, go, no go, yes, no, maybe so. That's him in Miami Vice.
We have reviewed this guy in so much, including Bumblebee, and I'm sure I couldn't see him in Aliens vs. Predator Requiem, but to me, this guy is and will always be Braga from a couple of the Fast and Furious movies, Fast and Furious, and then he cameoed in part 6.
Yeah, Kong Skull Island, American Gangster, you name it. John Ortiz is awesome.
What's funny is I saw American Fiction, loved that movie. He was in it. I couldn't tell you who he is, because to me, this guy is always going to be a heavy. And there's no heavy in American Fiction. And so I almost want to go back and see that movie again, because it's so comedic, and be like, who is he?
who he is a recognizable face that we as an audience can sit there and be like, okay, so this is going to be the guy that we have to deal with in this movie. They even comment on it in the movie. He's like, you know who I am? And Hutch is like, well, by the way, you're sitting there with your feet up on the desk. I assume that you're somebody. So I like the introduction.
Colin Hanks can't be our main bad guy. I mean, we've had these sheriffs in these kind of movies, and anytime you think about the tough sheriff, I mean, I think about Brian Dennehy from First Blood, but the sheriff is usually underestimating our hero and will pay for it. And we know that's going to happen to Colin Hanks, but Colin Hanks does not fall into, I mean, he's not even Tom Noonan in Knockaround, guys.
Yeah, I like this. I said this movie is lazily written, but one thing it does do is with the introduction here, I forget something I knew coming into this movie. I forget Sharon Stone's in this movie as the bad guy. I knew this from the trailers, I knew this from the clips, I knew this from the interviews, but I forgot while I'm watching this, and so I think Abel the sheriff is going to be our odd job, our main muscle, and that Wyatt behind the desk is going to be our big bad, like we had last time with the Russian mobster who was the, older brother of the guy who got beat up. And so I really think this is where it's going to go, and that Wyatt ends up being just like Hutch. He's paying off a debt, and a debt that he didn't necessarily owe, but he's working illegal things to get out of this debt, and kind of once out of that life is going to make him really relatable. And we start off seeing he's not such a bad guy. He is the father of the boy Brady was fighting. And he says Brady hurt his pitching arm. So we find out Max, we're going to see a scene later of Max and Wyatt throwing a baseball to see if Max's arm is permanently damaged. But even with that, Wyatt's like, get out of my town. He's not, I'm going to kill you and your family.
Right, yeah, he's not arch villain. And when Hutch says, along the lines of what would you do in this situation if your daughter got smacked upside the head, that's when we see that Wyatt can identify with Hutch as a parent. And he's the one who just says, just go. Colin Hanks is the one that's going to push it. And when you push it, Brian Dennehy, you're going to end up dead. That's how it goes in every episode. When Dennis Franz pushes the A-team, they're going to fire back.
Yeah, but if this was an episode, I'm with Arnie. I'm forgetting that we're getting a special appearance by Sharon Stone in this episode. So I'm thinking Wyatt is our big main bad guy, and Hutch is going to hook up and take the bad guy down with the original bad guy, which is Colin Hanks. And that's just not where this movie's going. We get some of a twist here coming up.
And this was a big part of the advertisement, was what we're going to get next as our fight scene on the duck boat. And the whole time they're talking about duck boats and what is a duck boat, and Hutch is saying, oh, it's a military boat. I'm like, no, it isn't. I've been on duck boat tours. They are ridiculous yellow tourist boats that are not safe, and people sometimes drown on them, as we found out after taking a few.
I've been on the duck boat rides in Seattle, and I thought these were all like ex-military vehicles, the kinds that could go, on land and water.
Yeah, I mean, that is what I've been on too with these duck boat tours, is they take you down a body of water, and then you get to a port, and they start driving you around the streets like a bus. That's, apparently, I had to look it up, they were used by the military in World War II, but now they're used when I went to, I think it was Philadelphia.
That's the joke here, right? Is that Hutch has gotten Brady all excited about maybe getting on this old decommissioned military boat, and it's going to be something cool, but instead it's this cheesy thing with a big yellow canopy and a big yellow duck head on it. So yeah, that's the joke they're telling, but the point is they already set it up as it's kind of a boat for the water, which means we're about to get another bus fight scene, but this time on the water.
I didn't put that together, Justin. Bus fight scene again. It's kind of long. It actually goes almost in 2 parts, because that first part, Hutch is going to lose part of that pinky, and then he's going to get thrown over, but then he's going to come back. That's why I say it's a fight in 2 parts.
When we see him at the very beginning during that interrogation, he's got a bandage, and I was like, did he lose part of his pinky in this movie? And here we're going to see he does, when this deputy and 3 other stuntmen get on the boat.
Yeah, they're obviously no match for Hutch. They didn't know what they were getting into. We're going to get the comment after the fight for the guys, like, you did not pay us enough to throw down with a dude who actually knows how to fight. The pinky thing, by the way, were you thinking Wick cutting off his finger?
I indeed was.
Yeah. Well, this is funny because when that happened and he's taking this beating, I thought to myself, well, this is weird because it's the first time I felt Hutch might lose a fight. Maybe he'll get thrown off that boat and wash up on shore or something like that. And this is a fish out of water movie. We've seen that before, but I think they don't do that. They don't make anything a serious threat to. There's nothing he can't handle. Even though he's going to take the beating of the week, he can still come back and he knocks these guys' teeth out. He throws the boat anchor into the one guy and it sticks in him. And then he gets thrown off the back of the boat. I love that.
I think he was taking it easy on them at the beginning. You know, they were coming at him unarmed and he didn't want to escalate. You know, one of the big things he's going to be later on is like de-escalate. And so I think he didn't bring his A game to this fight. And then when the cop pulls out the knife and cuts off his pinky finger, and then it's kind of funny because he's like trying to get the tip back so it can get sewed back on. This fish comes up and eats the pinky finger. Then he's like, okay, now I have to actually put my heart into this fight and fuck this guy up some. One thing Odenkirk said that I read is, in the first film, he was clear to not put humor into it. He wanted it to be straight. He didn't want people to be thinking it's funny Bob Odenkirk winking at the camera, and thus they don't have to take the film seriously. He wanted to be sure he could deliver as an action star. Because he did, he was wanting to put more humor into this one, a little bit lighter, and I think we see that with the fish eating the pinky. I think we see that when he grabs the pipe out of the guy's hand and then throws it off the boat and is like, now nobody can have the pipe.
I love that line.
The way the camera lingers on the pinky coming off and it bouncing and him trying to get it. Like you said, Arnie, he wants to get it so he can get some back on. He doesn't say that. It's just implied and we catch that the way it's filmed. I half-assed thought that he was going to pop up back out of the water with that fish in his mouth. Like somehow he went over, he found the exact fish, and we're going to get a scene of it getting sewn back on. But that's not what this movie's going to do, and I'm kind of glad for it.
That would be ridiculous, and we might think badly of it, but I tell you guys, the audience around me, hearing the guy next to me chuckle, you really get the feeling, that's not a bad thing, that Hutch is who all these guys in the theater want to be. And back in their day, when they were younger, they would probably go into Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, and you want to imagine yourself like those guys, but they're big guys. Bob Odenkirk is still the everyman. I think that the everymen in the theater are identifying with that.
But when he loses that finger, one thing this movie really wants to do is give people extensive dental bills. So many teeth are knocked out in this movie. When he has the pipe, we see slow-mo, he hits the cop in the face and the tooth goes flying out, and later they can barely talk on the phone because so many of their teeth are missing. If I had the phobia about teeth that I have about eyes, this movie would be nightmarish.
Yeah, there's a lot of broken teeth and a lot of hits to the face that they're not afraid to show either. And I said it last time watching these movies. I half-ass wonder if some of these stuntmen are missing teeth and they have dental work that they can take out and reveal their real messed up faces.
Oh yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. And I love the one officer, the deputy or whatever, trying to talk to Colin Hanks, missing his teeth, trying to hold the phone up to his ear. He's unbelievably battered. And Hanks realizing that he's fucked up again, and now he's going to have to go up to the big bad. And that's when we get what I think is a really good introductory scene to Lendina, to Sharon Stone, one of the greats. I'm so happy to see her.
Is she one of the greats? I mean, she has Basic Instinct, which is a great movie. And you know what? I haven't seen Casino yet. I'm seeing it for the first time on Labor Day in theaters. So maybe that's a big one. But when I think of Sharon Stone, I think of Catwoman. I think of Basic Instinct 2.
No. Look, when I saw Sharon Stone was going to be in this movie, I was excited. So when she shows up and we get her introduction, the way I think about it is her roots in the 80s are in a lot of action B movies. And she'll pop up in stuff you might not remember. Above the Law with Steven Seagal, Action Jackson, it's like back then she was usually playing like the helpless woman, the worried spouse role. So a lot of times she was playing the Becca role. But now she is just chewing scenery like it eating contest. And it's a nice reversal of her old typecasting, I thought.
I'm going to say she's great in this. I love her in this. I was worried because she was the bad guy in Catwoman. And so we've seen her play evil before, and it was so awful. I was nervous about her being in here, but she is crazy in all the best ways in this, chewing up the screen, dancing for no reason, holding this cute Frenchie whose ears were too small for the breed. I wasn't even sure if it was a Frenchie, but it was a cute little dog, ordering hits on people so casually. I really did like her so much more than I thought I was going to in this.
Oh, I'm glad to hear both of you guys are enjoying her because I'm sitting over here and I think she went too over the top. To me, she's almost pulling me out of this world. Like, she feels like she's in a different movie universe. Even though in the first movie we had Julian, who was an over-the-top character, like, I feel like his introduction sold us on him. Her introduction here is more, we see her, she takes off her glasses, and instead of us in the movie's world and logic being like, oh, wow, this is a badass person, we're supposed to be like, oh, hey, look, it's Sharon Stone. This can either sink or float this movie for a person. And to me, the more I see her on screen, it's starting to be a little bit worrisome for me.
It wasn't doing it for you? I felt like she was kind of emulating what those main villains in the 80s action movies that she was in were like. Those movies, they would have a grand villain, an arch villain, and I felt she was doing that, just dialing it up even more.
I guess maybe I'm unfairly comparing her and what she's doing here to Julia Louis-Dreyfus in Thunderbolts and those performances where she's playing Valentina, a little bit more subdued bad person, but you know that she's got bad intentions.
There's so many more layers to that Valentina character. I mean, here Sharon Stone just gets to show up. She said, look at my look, check out my hair, my glasses, I got teeny tiny little knives. You came into my casino. My casino, this just looked like, the wing of somebody's house.
Yeah.
And, she starts carving up people and, bodies start dropping. She's got 2 henchwomen and she's got Daniel Bernhardt. He's back.
I wish there was more of her in this movie. My problem is that it felt like Sharon Stone was like, oh yeah, I'll do this movie, but I have a week. All right, 2 weeks, because the action scene alone is going to take a week to film. And then these other introductory scenes, but by having Abel as the middleman and by having Wyatt as the indentured servant who is working for her, and then having this weird scene where, yeah, she's at the casino and beating people up and causing them to be killed, it just feels like she isn't present enough to be a good big bad for Hutch at the end. Last time we had several face-offs between Hutch and the Russian mob guy. We had that wonderful scene where he goes to the club and gives the Russian guy a chance to walk away. I feel like in a nobody film, you have to have the diner scene from Heat. You have to have Hutch talking to the big bad. And here, Hutch never has a chance to talk to the big bad. And when she shows up, it's just time to start shooting.
I understand what you're saying, Arnie, because in every episode of the A-Team, you're going to get that early scene where, the team confronts Richard Lynch or whoever the bad guy is of the week, and then you don't see Richard again until the third act when the A-Team, puts the screws to him. So, yeah, we are missing that early run-in between Sharon Stone and Hutch.
And I think the filmmakers realized that, too, a little bit too late, and they probably couldn't shoot anymore with Sharon Stone because in our audience view, the most information we get about her is Harry happens to know everything about her and tells Hutch over the phone what's going on in this town. And that almost seemed too convenient of a info dump, I would say. Like, show me, don't tell me. And Hutch being on the phone with Harry, getting all this information about her, just is not reading to me.
Harry gives half the information and the barber gives the other half. I don't even know why we needed that, except we want to remind people RZA is the brother, and just like the last movie, RZA is going to inexplicably show up at the end. I wanted RZA and Christopher Lloyd to come on this vacation and be part of the family and beef up their roles, especially if you're filming this and you know in advance you want these people back. You can work around schedules a little better. I get that Rizzo only had a couple of days for the first film. For the second one, I feel like they could have done a lot more character building and show us other relationships in Hutch's life instead of the same relationships he already repaired in the first movie. Show us his relationship with his father, show us his relationship with his brother. Instead, we just have another scene where the barber is like, you need to de-escalate things because this is going to go very bad for you.
It makes it move fast to just have a quick 1-minute call with Colin Salmon or Rizzo. This is your bad person. This is whose line you've crossed. Which, look, the movie's, it's moving good. It's moving fast. It's fleet. We're going to go right to the next confrontation.
Is it weird that Hutch's only move with bad guys seems to be blowing up their shit? That seems to be his go-to move. Like, he shows up at this warehouse and he's basically going there to de-escalate. That's what he keeps telling himself. And he gets in there and he realizes there's a bunch of goons in there. He sees Colin Hanks in there and he's like, okay. And he sees piles of cash. They're doing something. I'm not even sure what this building is, but they have a big old log cutting saw off to the side that's going to come into play here. But he initially goes in and says, look, leave my family alone, leave us alone, and it's all over. But right before he gets out of there, he sees they've kidnapped a kid. And at this point, I'm not even sure if he knows that it's Wyatt's son. He just knows that it looks wrong.
I think he knows.
Yeah, I believe that he may have recognized him from the arcade. But I think, Hutch, the de-escalate to Hutch, it doesn't mean we're going to have a long talk. He still has to go in there and kind of represent the threat that he is and say, this is why you do not want to fuck with me. I don't want to fuck with you anymore. I'm just ready to let this go. And Colin Hanks, he's not at the level of villainy that a Sharon Stone or a Julian or any of these other guys are. Maybe one of those other guys might have said, okay, we don't have to take it any further. But we know that Julian was stupid and should have taken that deal in the last movie.
I think the key is, a great phrase for Hutch is peace through superior firepower. He's going to de-escalate by saying, I could do worse, and I'm not going to, and I can burn your shit down, but I'm not going to. You have a choice here to walk away. It's exactly what he did to Julian in the club. He wanted Julian to come after him, but he gave Julian the out, and here he's giving Abel the out, and Abel is actually going to take it and say, just get the fuck out of here, because he has enough going on. He's had to kidnap Wyatt's son. He's now the go-to guy for Sharon Stone. There's a biological weapon that never comes back again. Come on, this is Chekhov's biological weapon. You don't introduce a biological weapon and not have it go off at some point, or at least have a countdown that somebody has to stop.
Right. I thought those tanks, those barrels were going to be hooked up to the water park somehow and they were slowly going to kill everybody and that's what they stopped. But nope, it's just essentially explosive liquid in barrels.
Something drug related is what I thought might it be. Isn't, liquid, meth or whatever? I don't know meth. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just not good at it.
Meth is explosive when you're making it. You do need barrels of ammonia and gasoline and all of this flammable stuff. This is why a lot of meth makers end up in burn wards. So it could be meth related. It could be, you see barrels like that. I play Doom. They blow up. So, but I like that Hutch is a hero, a good man, because he has a chance now to walk away too. He wanted to walk away. He wanted to de-escalate, but he saw Max tied up. And once again, the director's doing the same trick he did before, where we get this side view of whatever that warehouse is. Hutch drives off, and then just off screen, you hear the tires squeal, and he slammed on the brakes, and then at high speed, it backs up, it lands in middle frame, and then you just stay outside the building as you hear the bullets and the screams.
My audience loved this. When you hear the screech of the tires and he's going back, and you knew he was going back anyway because the camera didn't move, my audience loved it. It's great when we get to imagine in our heads the violence. You don't do that for every fight scene. You do it the one time and you give the audience a little treat there. And I thought that was great. He goes back in there. He finds Max.
You know what my thinking is that when you're doing an action film, there's only so many ways you can be creative and only so many ways you can film kicks and hits, and you can use slow-mo, which they've done. You can do all these kinds of tricks. So if you're going to have this fight, we've seen so many fights at this point, and we're going to see so many more. Allowing us to imagine some is good, but then we're also going to get Max's POV for the second half of the fight. We cut, and we're in the van, like with an over-the-shoulder shot from Max, and just seeing what Hutch is doing far off. It's almost Hardcore Henry first person, but it's not quite Hardcore Henry, because you see the back of Max's head, and when the guy gets thrown into the windshield and the windshield cracks, I'm like, okay, you've got to have a creative mind to just show us something we haven't seen before in all of these action films. This fight gives us the most creative stuff the director's going to do this whole movie.
Totally inventive, and somewhat admittedly by their creative team here, cartoonish. We get Hutch pinned down by a big muscular guy on one of those spinning log cutting wheels that you used to see in cartoons all the time, right? The bad guy would have the damsel in distress tied up and slowly moving down the conveyor belt.
I thought it was just a table saw. I mean, it wasn't a huge blade. I didn't think we were in a lumber yard.
I like being reminded of those old cartoons, so I like that memory.
But yep, Hutch is getting pretty close to that blade before he finally gets himself out of that situation. But yeah, this whole scene is fun. And like you said, Arnie, it's getting creative in the way to show it to us, right? After a while, I can only watch so much John Wick close-up fighting and elbowing guys in the nose type of stuff. This is fun and different.
And you know, Hutch finally gets his moment where he's got Max and he's ready to leave. And he fires the Uzi in the air, and the sparks that fall are going to ignite all the money because he's already poured gasoline all over the money. Let me ask you guys, did you get the impression when he fires, you see the sparks fall and he's watching it, the look on his face? I kind of got the impression that Hutch just realized what he did. Like, shit, I didn't intend for this to happen. Do you think, like, he would know those sparks are going to fall? Do you think it was his intention to burn all that money at that moment?
Oh, yes. I think maybe the moment was, I didn't de-escalate. I think that's the oh shit of, I escalated, not oh shit, sparks are going to start a fire.
He speaks about it a little bit later, and I think it's a character moment that we're starting to learn a little bit more about Hutch, where he's admitting that he really doesn't have control over this. So I think maybe when he's in kick-ass mode, he's not necessarily in there. He's not driving. It's just kind of autopilot for him. So yeah, maybe kick-ass Hutch knew what he was doing, and as soon as the sparks started falling, regular dad Hutch came back and was like, oh boy, this is the situation we find ourselves in now.
In either case, he does realize that this is not over. Now that you burned their money, which, hey, if he'd taken that money, he could have used it to pay off his little Russian debt. But now that he's burned that money, he's going to have to deal with Sharon Stone. And we haven't talked about this yet, but he's got to have a conversation with Becca.
The tensions are still there, right? Like, we haven't talked much about the relationship, and we kind of hinted at it. She was suspicious of him and saying that he's not going to work on this vacation. She accused him of coming here for work because he had a black bag, but there was actually a bottle of wine in there that he ordered 6 months ago, so it shows that he does care. He is thinking about the relationship.
Don't drink stuff you get on eBay. Don't trust food you get on eBay. No, no.
But for the most part, Becca and the kids have been relegated. Once he realizes that, you know, this is not going to be the vacation that he was hoping for and trouble's afoot, he sends Becca and the kids off to the lodge where his dad is staying, thinking that that's going to be a safe place for them to hide out while this all goes down.
And maybe I've seen too many geezer teaser movies, but when Christopher Lloyd keeps talking about the lodge, I thought this was really going to be something. We're going to find out later that the whole reason Hutch even had a vacation there is because their dad, who we were told was an FBI agent, but he was doing some kind of mission in Plummerville back, I guess that would be the 70s or the 80s when Hutch was a kid. And so if Christopher Lloyd is so anxious to go to the lodge, have you guys seen the movie VFW?
Yep. In fact, I just watched it yesterday. It was streaming.
It's just a bunch of old dudes who are at the VFW and they get attacked, assault on precinct 13 like, but because they're all war veterans, they can kick some ass. And so I was thinking, when we get to Christopher Lloyd at the lodge, we might find him with a whole bunch of old mercs.
That would be cool. Yeah, I mean, it'd be a little too many characters for this movie, but that's cool. I like that.
Old hunting buddies, right?
Yeah, they could do a flashback episode for that movie.
But instead, it seems like absolutely nobody is at the lodge except for Christopher Lloyd. And so, yeah, they get to hide Max there along with Wyatt and daughter who matters so little I don't remember her name.
Sammy, right?
Yeah, Sammy.
Hey, in this scene, Becca's the only adult in the room, and she is looking on the wall at what's a tranquilizer gun. Turns out a tranquilizer rifle. And we could tell that she's thinking about where Hutch is, what he's doing, and how she's about to go get involved. Did any of you guys think throughout this movie, and I'll even go back to the scene where they're drinking wine together, did you think that maybe Becca did this kind of life also? And we just haven't found that out yet.
It's so hinted at. We talked about it with the first movie. How did she get involved with him? She's cleaning his wounds and saying, we're doing this again. So she obviously knew of his life. And the whole reason Connie Nielsen took the role was she said she wanted a bigger role in sequels and find out more about this character in sequels. We see them at the carnival, and she is this sharpshooter from hell. She is just doing this carnival game and hitting target after target after target. I'm like, okay, she was a sniper. You know, she, like Hutch, took a day job as a realtor, but she was doing wet work. She was in the military. Maybe she was in Iraq or something. And I think the way that this final edit of the movie comes out, she just learned right at that moment she could shoot well.
I don't buy it. I think in Nobody 3 we'll find out that she was an operative, to use the word that Sharon Stone uses.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure if they even know yet what they might want to do with Becca's backstory, because in this movie itself, they kind of leave it as they do talk a little bit about when they first met, and he was all bloody, and I'm not sure what she was doing at that time, but I can see them going that way, but they don't go that way here. We do not find out that Becca is formally on the job in any sense whatsoever, but her skills at shooting will come in handy.
I think they make a couple of mistakes here, though, because we leave Becca with the kids at the lodge, because Hutch went and made peace with Wyatt, which led to a small fight, because he's like, I have Max, and of course Wyatt's taking that the wrong way, and then, they realize they're on the same side, they're going to team up against Sharon Stone. They get RZA in here along with Christopher Lloyd, and we're going to just do what we did last film, where they booby-trapped the warehouse in the last one. We're going to booby-trap the water park. I'm going to say a lot more opportunities for fun booby-traps in a water park than in a warehouse. I'm laughing out loud at the landmine in the ball pit.
Yes, the knives on the surfboards that flap around. The Tommy gun.
Yes, there's just so much fun opportunity to Final Destination, a water park with weaponry. But Becca's left with the kids. Now, what should happen here, I think, is Becca, she's going to call herself the mama bear. She should protect the kids. There's a group that's sent by Sharon Stone to go kill the kids, because what I think RZA said earlier is she kills bloodlines. Maybe Wyatt said it. But she's not going to stop by just killing Hutch. She's going to kill Hutch. She's going to kill Hutch's kids. She's going to kill anybody she can. So she sends people to kill Hutch's kids. Becca's moment, Connie Nielsen's moment, should be protecting the kids. Instead, inexplicably, RZA is sent to protect the kids, while Becca leaves the kids alone to take a trank gun to go to the water park.
Yeah, well, you know what that is, Arnie? It's because you can't have your guy, hero, kill the woman hench person, right? We need to have a woman kill another woman in today's type of movies.
I thought that, but technically Christopher Lloyd does it.
Yeah.
Becca's not there, I think, Arnie, because RZA has to live out his own fantasies in this movie, too. It's not just the audience, but, martial arts is a core tenet of the Wu-Tang Clan. It's part of their philosophy. It's part of their art, their music. So I think RZA was like, if I'm coming back, I want a sword and I want to fight. And so he's going to get that face off with Daniel Bernhardt. And you're right, Justin, about the way that it's set up with Sharon Stone being the one to face off against Bob Odenkirk and the male-female dynamic there and how, what we're used to seeing and what our expectations are when it comes to these kind of action movies. You make a good point there that it has to be Connie Nielsen to step in. We're still a little bit away from that, though. We gotta get through the third act bloodbath, and it's awesome. First of all, it starts with Odenkirk and John Ortiz in the entrance of the park, just to kind of face off. This is where we think Sharon Stone's going to enter the picture, but no, Colin Hanks has to come out to do his, last bow. And I knew he was dead here.
Yeah, comes out and talks some shit, and looks like his way of going about it, issuing the last warning, isn't going to work. So he starts walking back with an attitude, and Sharon Stone, Ladina, tells her guys to take him out, and yeah, he takes a couple bullets right to the face, and he goes down. Not as surprising as last week.
I agree, not as surprising as last week, but you know what I love is that her people have such powerful guns, it amputates his arm. The arm is flying at the camera. I'm like, Jesus Christ, because he takes a lot of bullets before he fully goes down. And I just like that Ladina realizes this guy's a frickin' idiot. Let's just kill him too. I also like when Wyatt and Hutch are like, what if we say no? And Abel's like, well, all hell breaks loose. Yeah, we'll take that. We're going to go with that.
Because they know he's not a threat. Look, Colin Hanks doesn't even get the dignity of being killed by Hutch. That's so deserving of this character.
Well, that kicks off our trounce through the fun park, right? Like now, Ladina's going to unleash her men to go follow these two men into the fun park. And you have to assume that they had to suspect somewhat of a trap, right? But they don't. They're just droves of bad guys in masks with guns running after them and getting blown up along the way.
You're right. They should. Why didn't they count on this? It's such an obvious ploy, but whatever. That's just what the movie's going to give us. Just, death after creative death after creative death. All of it's here. Christopher Lloyd's got a minigun.
It's a hand crank minigun. I loved that little bit. It was like...
That's like Civil War.
Yeah, it was like an old-timey camera where the cinematographer had to crank the film by hand before there were motors. And only he's doing it with bullets.
I do like the setup here, and I do like some of the gags that we get, but I kind of wish that there was a little bit more, right? We get a quick scene in a mirror maze, which is fun, and we get a lot of stuff around the pool and the water slide. But this is an amusement park. Like, let's get somebody on a tilt-a-whirl. Let's get somebody in a haunted house, dark ride type of thing. I feel like there's a few more opportunities for fun and interesting ways to trap people into a kill box amusement park setup.
I think they're watching the clock.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, like Jason said, I bet there was more because we had scenes of Hutch and his family on a merry-go-round and in the fun house and the water slides and the shooting range. I bet all of that was to come back here at the end, and they kept the best. They kept the fun house because that is a little cliche. I mean, how many times have we seen, oh, we're going to shoot the person. Oops, I'm shooting his reflection in a mirror and not really him. But my favorite kill of the whole movie is when Hutch is going up the stairs to the water slide and then jumps on the water slide and the guy jumps after to go after him. And Hutch gets off early and the spikes come up. And instead of seeing the guy impaled on the spikes, we cut to the water coming off the water slide, and it's just water, and then it's just blood. I loved that.
Just gallons and gallons of blood. It was awesome. And when we talk about over the top, yeah, that's over the top. And this movie's kind of leaning into that. And that's cool. Audience is eating it up, man. And in terms of time, I think that, Arnie, you're onto the right thing. They kept the best of stuff because they know that they've got to have at least 5 minutes in the end here with the final face-off.
Yeah, and we get Sharon Stone finally coming at Hutch, and she gets him down. And, he thinks that Christopher Lloyd might be dead because somebody shot like a bazooka up at his perch where he was shooting down at people. Wyatt is shot in the leg. Hutch is shot in the shoulder. Everybody's wounded. And it looks like Ladina may get the kill.
Never thought it would happen because I knew who was coming in at this moment. This Connie Nielsen coming in, taking out Sharon Stone. It's a great moment, I think. I think it's good for her character, for sure, to do something. I also think this is appealing to the audience again. It is a little bit of wish fulfillment. Every guy wants his girl to fight for him. You know, I don't care if you're like at the water park or if you guys, if at the Met Gala, if you're with your girl and she wants to throw down and like defend your honor, okay, that's the hottest thing I've ever seen in my life. I love it.
Yeah, I like that. When she shoots a trank dart, I found that was kind of funny because it was, again, the Lodge. I thought it was going to be a real gun, but no, she hits Lindina with a trank dart, and Lindina's like, oh, I'm still coming, and I'm going to throw a knife at you. And again, Becca is such a skilled shooter. She's able to shoot the knife out of the air and still hit Lindina in the eye.
Did you guys catch this pretty large continuity error? Because we see it kind of happen in slow motion. It's a big glory shot of this trank dart going right at Lindina's face, breaking her sunglasses, sticking in her eye. And then a few moments later, Lindina sits up and her sunglasses are intact. Right before she blows up, she's just there, full head on screen, both lenses in her eyeglasses. And I was like, come on.
She stands around and talks a little bit more before, and there's a dart sticking out of her eye while she's still talking. But I didn't notice during like the big explosion where we get the slow-mo CGI shot of her that's clearly not Sharon Stone.
Right. They forgot to CGI a dart into her eye.
Yeah, I did not catch that.
Hey, they were too busy with the Celine Dion song, man. They knew we'd be distracted. And when they crank up that Celine Dion song, that's perfect for this scene. 'Cause I'm your lady. I loved it, man. I loved it.
It was the perfect song for that. And I don't want to neglect, though, while I don't think RZA should have been the one defending the kids, that he does it all with a samurai sword, and then ends up in a samurai versus machete fight against the lead guy. I had a lot of fun with that. And when the bad guy says, the last person I fought like this, I took his head off, and then immediately RZA slices through his skull. Again, the CGI is so bad, I'm thinking about Resident Evil 1, where the lasers went through the people. But it's also fun that he's like, don't bring a machete to a katana fight.
Yeah.
Also, very convenient that the last bad guy he's got to fight happened to bring a sword.
Daniel Bernhardt had that from the first scene, so I'm like, you can't carry that sword around and not use it. Chekhov sword.
All the stuff going on at the lodge is pretty uneventful. Like, I don't feel like there's ever really any sense of danger. Some of the guys bust in, and we give Wyatt a quick moment to protect his sister and stuff. But for the most part, it's just kind of here because that's where we put them, and we have to kind of show that stuff is happening there.
Wyatt defending his sister is such a weird beat. It's like, yeah, let your son get in fights and learn to fight because he might need to defend the family someday.
So true.
Cargo shorts dad behind me loved it.
On the one hand, I saw it coming and its character payoff. On the other hand, do I agree with the message it's sending? Do I care about the message it's sending? It is a movie about a suburban dad who kills people for a living, so maybe I'm taking it too seriously, but I did think about that.
I think this movie's great at not taking itself totally seriously. Yeah, by the end of this fight scene, when the bad guys are dead, we'll find that all of our heroes are still alive too. We haven't lost any of them. John Ortiz is not going to die. He'll take a bullet. And I thought he got shot in the ass, but he's like, I got shot in the leg. Ass would have been funnier. Christopher Lloyd's still kicking. RZA saved his people. And Becca and Hutch, they're good as a couple. That's when we get the reveal in the interrogation scene, when it pulls back to reveal it's not just Hutch and that wolf dog sitting there, but Becca is there too. And she looks great. She looks like somebody who's very satisfied with what she's just done.
I looked it up, and these are not the same people who interrogated Hutch in the last movie. And maybe it wouldn't make sense to have the same people because we're geographically different and we need agents from that region. By the same token, I would have kind of liked it if it was the same agents and they were kind of pissed off that they had to let him go again.
Especially since they're being interrogated in like a container in a warehouse.
Yeah, it felt very CIA Black Ops thing.
I did like the little bit of information that we got to just remind us one last time before we take off from this movie that Hutch used to be somebody and still is somebody, because the interrogating agent gets a phone call and you can kind of hear a little bit of the voice on the other end to make out what's going on, but basically telling this guy, like, look, I don't care what this guy did. You do not question him any further. Let them go. Whatever mysterious past that we have yet to fully learn about Hutch is there. is a nice little reminder here at the end of this movie that we are dealing with a badass.
I gotta say, though, we didn't talk at all about the wolf. There's not much to say about the wolf, but there was that wolf in captivity in the water park. And then, like I mentioned, Lendina had the Frenchie and was with her. And I was thinking, did the Frenchie blow up with Lendina? We didn't see the dog, but we're going to see in this last scene that Hutch's family has adopted a wolf and a Frenchie, and they still have a cat named Lasagna. So they've got quite the menagerie in this house.
And we get, this is a very old-fashioned thing, photos from vacation. The audience of boomer dads and granddads sitting around me, they were like, aw. He's got the family sat down, they've got the projector, he's showing everybody the pics, and there it is on the wall. The one mystery for me that is still going to bother me because of the way my brain works, and I'm going to think about it every time I see this movie, and in between, posters framed of the Forever Purge and Darkman in Hutch's house.
I saw that too. The Forever Purge was extraordinarily in frame. That was unmissable. And then when I'm looking at it, I noticed Darkman, and I did some deep dives. I was looking at producers. I was looking at actors. I was looking at family members of people involved in the making of this movie. If anyone can give me the answer to the mystery of why those two specific movies are there, I would love to know. Maybe it's just the director likes them or Bob Odenkirk likes them. But other than they're all Universal Pictures movies, so you got the clearances down okay, I don't know. That does not seem like the kind of movie Hutch would watch.
Yeah, if they were there to inform us a little bit more about who Hutch is through his preferences for movies and music and stuff like that, which we've kind of drawn from these movies, yeah, you would expect them to be some old Western movies or some old 80s movies, even canon films like you talked about before, Arnie. But what are these two movie posters trying to tell us, if anything?
I also was confused that they're watching a slideshow. During the movie, the one thing Sammy did was take a lot of photos, but the camera was so small. I'm like, that has to be a digital camera. And we did see Christopher Lloyd teaching her how to use it, but I never saw her changing film. I don't even know where the hell you get slides developed these days. You probably have to mail that shit off. So on the one hand, it was nostalgic because my family, my dad was a slide guy. I don't know why I like Prince, but my dad was a slide guy. And after every freaking trip, and he took 2 international trips a year, after every one, we would be forced to be like, yeah, Kremlin, very cool. I never saw pictures of a Kremlin before.
It's something that the audience can relate to. And I think that they have found their audience for sure with this movie.
Except nobody went, so they didn't find their audience.
Well, they went for an older audience. I don't know. You get a $10 million opening this weekend. I think that it's okay. Any expectation to open at 20 is just lunacy. And then after you saw what Weapons did last weekend, you knew that it was going to continue to dominate the second weekend.
It'll probably do well internationally, too. This isn't a dialogue-heavy movie, and there's nothing that would make it not play in China. So no matter where it goes, you can understand, much like I understood this director's previous film, even though I'm not Indonesian, anybody can understand a dad protecting his family and getting revenge for his daughter. So it may do okay. So Jason, Justin, do you recommend Nobody 2? Why can't they do Nobody 2 Hutch's Boogaloo? I mean, come on, something! Jason.
Sometimes a movie's entire job is just to be a tight, well-paced piece of entertainment. And Nobody 2 just nails it. We have a brisk 89-minute actioner. It's built for maximum popcorn enjoyment. Quick setup, great set pieces, really good set pieces, and characters that you're rooting for. And even more than the last one, I feel the sequel really hitting that dad core demographic right where they itch. You know, I could feel it coming off the guy next to me. The cargo shorts crowd, the CBS procedural crowd, they will love this movie. It is pure wish fulfillment for a certain demographic, and it works because Odenkirk, no matter how many times he throws some dude a beating, he still comes off like this middle-aged everyman, still could be your neighbor. Comfort food was a phrase we used in a last review, and I think that's even more applicable here. The movie's got style. We talked about that. Inventive action. That equals fun. On top of that, it's got fun characters. Sharon Stone just goes full ham. Colin Hanks and that haircut. All the returning cast, everybody here delivers, and Odenkirk is still the anchor. He still understands the assignment, and he delivers. I have joked throughout the whole movie that it's episodic, and I don't mean that to be disparaging. It's in a good way for me. It doesn't pretend to be anything more than it is. We've talked about it. If it has legs at the box office, it's going to be because of the demo. It'll be because there's nothing coming out between now and Conjuring. I think the movie will dominate on streaming. And it is a recommend from me. These filmmakers knew what worked before. They doubled down here. The result you get is a movie that just keeps you smiling. So crank up the spiral staircase, throw grandpa in the back of a minivan, and go have a good time with the family. That's a recommend.
Justin.
So with this being a sequel, and as we've talked about over the last 2 reviews, a sequel that really takes a lot of cues from 80s movies, I really started to think, what is this reminding me of? What does this sequel feel like to me? And I went over a lot of them, and I went through some horror franchises and stuff, but the one that keeps sticking with me is Jaws. This feels like Jaws 2, which for a lot of people is not a bad movie. And to me, it's not a bad movie. I think you get to see a lot more of the shark. We get to learn more about the family. We get more of what was good in that first movie. But at the same time, what we lose is some of that artistic grit that the original movie had. It's not that you can't do it. It's just, I think it's impossible to be new again. So if you can't be new and fresh again, what you're going to do is you're going to take the things that you did well the first time and do them again and go bigger with them. So I'm not saying this movie isn't a good sequel. I'm saying it's never going to live up to what the original gave us. So with that in mind, I can give this movie a recommend, but there are parts of it where I'm sitting here going like, yep, that's kind of tropish. Yep, that's kind of something that you would see in a sequel. But it leaves me wondering, are they doing it on purpose? Like, are these people making this film, the people behind this movie, are they accidentally doing things or are they purposely doing things? And to be honest with you, I don't know. But either way, this second time out, I'm giving them enough leeway to assume that everything is purposeful. But that leaves me looking forward to the future of this franchise. And while I'm glad they did not go the John Wick route and start going, let's get international, let's make everything bigger, let's make the stakes higher and everything, this feels like the same level of stakes as the first one, just dangerous enough to be able to get you behind Hutch and his family and want them to be safe and not start causing international incidents. So I'm glad about that. But that leads me to thinking about, well, are we going to end up in Jaws 3 territory this next time? Or is Nobody 3, if we get around to it, is it going to be a 3D spectacular? Are we going to go to SeaWorld? I don't know. But what I do know is there are some holes in this movie that if they are going to come back and do this again, I just urge them to take another swipe at it, right? Like, go over your draft one more time before you go to film, because you still have some good ideas, you still have great action. Just make sure that it's clean before going to film. This is a recommend, but it's lower than the first one. I just hope that's not the continuing trend. If we come back again, I want them to raise the bar one more time.
Justin, you and I saw the same movie. I think that nobody making this film had the courage to deviate from the typical sequel formula of, let's just remake the first film. I don't think it had to be this way. I think we saw Hutch grow as a person and become self-actualized in that film. And so you really could have taken a sequel and still had a fun action film, but still explored more of Hutch or more of his wife and given us more. But instead of building on Hutch's emotional arc from part 1, this movie just has the exact same beats. Hutch is disconnected from his family, again. Hutch's family is threatened, again. Hutch pisses off a crime boss, again. Hutch teams up with his dad and brother for a booby-trapped Home Alone final battle, again. So that's disappointing. The first Nobody was special to me. Not just great action, but special to me. I said it in my summation. What separates a good action movie from a great action movie is the beats between the action. And that first Nobody movie worked because we saw Hutch rediscover himself. He went from the numb, spreadsheet-working office drone to a man reclaiming his purpose, even if that purpose was murdering bad guys with style. He had a clear arc. In Nobody 2, I'm not sure he has any character growth at all. He starts out a little burned out for killing people and ends up rejuvenated, but I don't think he's changed or grown. There's no journey. It's just a vacation. And if we're not exploring Hutch, what about his family? Like we said, in the first film, we were left with questions about Becca. How did she fall for this guy? What does she really know about his past? The first film hinted she knew more than she let on, and here we get more marital tension like we had in the first one. And then halfway through the movie, she's a world-class sniper with no training, no backstory, no setup. She's just awesome now. And it's lazy writing and hollow character work. So the bottom line is, this is a worse script and a worse movie than the original. But that doesn't mean it's a bad movie. Because what separates a good action movie from a great action movie is the characters. What separates a okay action movie from a bad action movie is the action. And I think the action here is still great. I actually think a lot of the fights are better than the ones in the original. I think the fights are more brutal. I think they're inventive and fun. I think the camera work gets creative, like the fight we talked about over Max's shoulder, but never feels so gimmicky it feels tiresome. And Hutch may not evolve, but by risking everything to save a kid who attacked his son, he becomes somebody who I can really root for as having a strong moral center, even if it's not a character arc. And I liked the red herring that Wyatt was a bad guy, only to find out he was very much like Hutch, having to pay off a debt. I like Sharon Stone. Again, she's not in it enough, but when she's on screen, I think she's gloriously unhinged. That weird dance she does, and then the doting on her Frenchie while ordering murders. She let loose, and I am here for it. So I think nobody is going to call this sequel an improvement over the original, but I think everybody who likes these types of action films will find stuff to enjoy here. It's a middle-of-the-road recommend.
So when it comes to Nobody 3, what are the expectations? Because if you're thinking the trilogy route, then something's got to be revealed, and I'm thinking that we need to find out more about Becca's backstory. I don't know where they're going to go in Nobody 3. If they're not going to Europe, then they're going to a high school reunion or taking one of the kids to college or something like that.
To be honest with you, the one thing that I don't necessarily want more of is all of the family. I think it works better when it's mostly Hutch protecting his family, right? I definitely don't want Wyatt to become part of the team. I don't need a teenager running around kicking ass.
You know what I would like? What about a story where Hutch has to protect his brother? RZA gets in some shit. Hutch is still protecting his family, but now he's protecting his brother. We get Christopher Lloyd a bigger part. We get RZA a bigger part. We can explore the mysteries of those characters instead of sticking with the immediate family and redoing the wife beat and redoing the kids beat.
I could go along with that. But whatever they decide to do, though, they need to figure out whatever the magic sauce was in the first one. And I just don't know that you can shrink back into that. But maybe focusing on another character might give them that opportunity.
They definitely, unfortunately, haven't built us a John Wickish world where they left us on a cliffhanger and all the pagers going off and everybody's after Hutch. I'm so glad we don't have that. To be honest, based on the box office, if nobody wants a sequel to this, I'm fine with a duology.
You could still sequelize this. I mean, these movies don't cost a ton of money. And yeah, it may not do well at the box office, but we know that it would be the number one movie streaming on whatever service. You know, I like to think of Nobody as a theatrical property. It's got a little more prestige. I suppose I could use that word. I might be overusing it. But you could definitely make a low-budget sequel to this. I don't mean micro-budget. I mean kind of around what they're spending now.
Well, we will find out if they do come back to it. I will be there and I will be excited because, like I said last time, I've always liked Bob Odenkirk, and I think he has done very well as the star of these two films. He carries them on his back, doing all the action, and he is as good in Nobody as I think Keanu is in John Wick. I think he brings the action, he does the stunts himself, he does the training, and he's the emotional center. Again, I didn't love the John Wick sequel, so I think we're in the same boat, but I really like Odenkirk here. I'll be there whatever he does, and I'll probably go watch Better Call Saul in the meantime. And speaking of the meantime, next week, we are shifting gears, and going into the world of Stephen King once again. The Long Walk is coming out for my birthday in September. Yay me. I get to review a Stephen King movie on my birthday. But we'll lead up to that looking at a, yay us again, duology of made-for-television Stephen King movies. We start with a original miniseries, not based on a book, but King wrote a script called Rose Red. It stars Nancy Travis and also has in it Melanie Linsky, who is a pretty acclaimed actress, and character actor Kevin Teague. So we've got that coming up next week. It has an interesting backstory. It started as a Steven Spielberg project and ended as an ABC miniseries. Also, the director of Storm of the Century, that other original Stephen King miniseries. What do you do when Mick Garris says no? You call Craig R. Baxley.
The Diary of Ellen Rimbauer, he directed that one too.
He did. That is not a miniseries, but a prequel that came out as just a TV movie 1 year after Rose Red. So over the next 2 weeks, we're going to be spending it at this haunted house of Rose Red, reviewing both of those movies. And on Fridays, if you are a platinum level donor, it's time to get toxic.
Yeah, if that's not enough sludge for you.
If you're addicted to now playing, don't you know that we're toxic? Toxic Avenger.
Yep, heading over to Tromaville to check out what's going on over there since Peter Dinklage and Kevin Bacon have revived this long dormant 80s. Was it a quadrilogy? How many are there?
I'd say a quadrilogy. I mean, listen, this is a big franchise, guys. There are 4 movies, 5 counting the reboot. There was a toy line. There was a comic book. Actually, 2 comic books. There was a children's cartoon series that aired next to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the early 90s or late 80s. There was a video game. Toxic Avenger is not a small little property. If New Line Cinema is the house that Freddy built, Troma is the house that Toxie built. And so it's time to look at the foundation.
And that's what I'll be tuning in for. The movies, I've only really seen the first one, but I remember the toy line. I had one of those toys. I had one of those figures. I remember the cartoon. I remember it being a moment in pop culture. And that's what I'll be tuning in here to hear that part of the conversation. I'm really interested just to hear you guys talk about how this really gross kind of, this is a twisted ass idea. If you've ever seen the first one, it's not anything close to what you would show a kid ever.
Yeah, there's a lot of sex and nudity in that film. You think turning Rambo into a kid's cartoon is weird? You think turning RoboCop into a kid's cartoon is weird? Nothing so weird as a woman masturbating to Polaroids of dead kids becoming a kid's cartoon.
Oh boy. We are in for it with Toxie, I guess.
So Stuart, Justin, and I will be spending 5 weeks in Tromaville starting Friday for platinum donors who either donate $35 to us directly via PayPal or are at the $50 level on Patreon and Podbean, which also gets you those over 100 other exclusive bonus reviews like the Inside Out duology and so many others. You can find all the details at nowplayingpodcast.com/donate. And let's give some shout outs to some patrons who have been supporting us these past few weeks.
Yeah, big thank yous coming. Big thank yous to Kyle Dillard, to Mark Moskiki, to Mohiba Kamraj, and I hope I said your name right, Robert Redden, Eileen Rivera, Azana Reed, thank you, my man Neil McCahey, Garrett Collins, Tim Tracy, Mark W., A.T. White, thank you very much for supporting us. Nath Williams, thank you. Lucas Dosher, thank you very much.
Hey, we also have Lee Addison, Laces Out Dan, Lee Drag, Jeff Gannon, Carl Grasso, Jeffrey Gaudreau, Martin D. Hibbets, Stephen Bell, Gila Torre Yates, A. Nick Hosack, and Jeremy Mills.
And I want to give a thanks and a shout out to Sean O'Keefe, Michael Windsor, Joe Black, Chris Hargrave, Lucy Rodriguez, thank you all so much, Gerard Lavelle, Timothy Graham, Simon Brennan, Alejandro Avila, and Dale Winters. You guys all rock so much. Thank you.
And give it up for Tom Ward, for Sean Burgess, for Julian Lewis, Wajid Bader, Donna Andres, Darker Hue Studios, thank you. Jeremy Smith, thank you very much. Kent Lyons, Andrew Doran, Andy Craig, Josette C., thank you.
And then also shout-outs to Slug, who joined us on the listener call recently. Thank you so much for that. Trevor Harrison, Jeff Wade, Zach G., Nitch, Grand Canyon, Allison, Maddie B., Fisher JA12, Scott T. Ward 1971.
Yeah, and we also can't forget about Seamus Finlayson, Hey You, Kiefer 51, Cokes J, Rudex, Chris Cross, T. Costa 2176, J. Clark Fisher, S.G. Harsh, Dimitri from Belgium, and of course, the ubiquitous Now Playing fan.
Thanks to you all so much. We could not do this show without donors and patrons. We have no ads. We are so happy we have no ads. I recently listened to a podcast as research for Now Playing. I won't call it out by name, but dear God, the fucking ads!
Needless to say, Arnie is now getting Blue Apron subscriptions.
Were they read by the hosts, Arnie, or were they inserted?
They were not, but it was over 3 minutes before the show started. And then several more minutes in the middle. How do people listen to this? I'm so glad we are ad-free. I would hate to do that. I would hate for anyone to feel as frustrated as I felt listening to that show.
And I'm no Hank Kingsley. I can't be reading the advertisements on the air.
And then there was the recent episode of South Park that I laughed so hard about all the muscle powder ads and everything that they were doing.
Well, we're no master debaters over here, but we do appreciate everybody keeping us ad-free.
So until next time, Das Vidanya.
You were told to leave.
So what are you still doing in town, old man?
Here with my family, making memories.
He's making memories, huh?
Thank you for listening to this Now Playing Podcast movie review.
Just a bit excessive. But glorious.
We hope you enjoyed the show.
It was good. It was better than I expected.
Help us spread the word about this show by leaving a 5-star review on Stitcher, Podbean, iTunes, or your podcast store of choice.
You had my back, and I'm proud of you.
Want more reviews like this one? In the archives section of NowPlayingPodcast.com, you'll find more than 1,000 in-depth movie reviews from our panel of hosts.
You guys having fun at the convention?
On our site, you can hear reviews for every installment in the world's biggest film franchises, including the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Spider-Man, Batman, X-Men, James Bond, Middle-earth, Jurassic Park, Fast and Furious, Star Wars, and Transformers.
Come on, kids. It can be an adventure.
And come back to NowPlayingPodcast.com next Tuesday for another all-new movie review podcast.
Come back. Deal with us then.
Support from listeners like you keeps Now Playing Podcast on the air.
What if we say no?
All hell breaks loose.
You can donate directly by tapping the support button at NowPlayingPodcast.com.
Oh, I'd love that. But, can we afford it?
I guess the real question is, can we afford not to?
And you can join our crowdfunding campaign for early access to new episodes, exclusive reviews, and bonus reviews available for a one-time contribution.
Come on, you gotta give me something.
Need more Now Playing? Subscribe to our In Focus weekly newsletter for exclusive digital download giveaways, celebrity interviews, behind-the-scenes insights, and more. Sign up through the subscribe page on our website and get it delivered to your inbox every Friday.
You say God doesn't close one door without opening another. Please, God, open that door.
You can also compare notes with us on Letterboxd. Go to letterboxd.com/nowplaying to see what our hosts are watching when we're not recording podcasts.
That's a whole other level of recklessness, man.
I gotta do what I gotta do.
And follow Now Playing on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our YouTube channel.
I am just so happy that we're all together.
Now Playing Podcast is produced by Arnie Carvalho.
I've come to terms with the fact that you don't have an average job, but we haven't seen you in months.
Associate produced by Jason Latham.
See, I've been pushed around for long enough. So from now on, I'm the fucking man.
Now Playing is edited by Santiago and Arnie.
I just want a break.
Now Playing credits read by Brock.
Hey, use your words.
The opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual hosts and may not reflect the views of Venganza Media Incorporated.
What I don't like is people who try to fuck up my peace of mind.
Venganza Media Incorporated is not affiliated with, and this podcast has not been prepared, approved, or licensed by any entity that created the film analyzed herein.
There's no need for this. This is all a big misunderstanding.
All movie clips and music included in this podcast are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders. They are included here for the purpose of review and no infringement is intended.
Well, hold on a minute. I get a say in this.
No, you don't.
Now Playing Podcast is an exclusive trademark of and may not be used without the express written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated.
There are other ways to handle things.
Now Playing is a Venganza Media production, copyright 2025, and no part of this show may be reproduced, repurposed, or redistributed without the written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated. All rights reserved.
I owe you everything. My life before you was, well, you know. Thanks for letting me pretend I was someone else. If you give me another chance, I'll try to get it right this time. I love you.
Look, I don't know. I've seen Sharon Stone as a star kind of my whole life. Even when I was a kid, and the littlest, my earliest memory, by the way, of Sharon Stone is her taking her top off in Irreconcilable Differences. That is the strangest thing to say. That's the first time I remember Sharon Stone.
There is so much there for you to talk about with a Freudian therapist that I can't even begin.
You should not let your child watch a movie about parents getting divorced. What were they thinking?
Meanwhile, I'm adding Irreconcilable Differences to my watch list.
It's great. It's got Ryan O'Neal. It's got Shelley Long. It's a great movie. Drew Barrymore. Okay.